Starting about 250 years ago, when colonization began in the 1700s, that was the beginning of severe genocide of our people. Forced slavery, killing, cultural suppression, and stealing of our lands. Our people were forced off of their lands and taken into the missions. And this was really devastating to our people and to many other cultures that went through this as well. All of our lands were given away, and we had very few places to return home to. And the California genocide was the killing of thousands of indigenous peoples all over California by the U.S. government and other governments. It wasn't until 1924 by the Indian Citizenship Act that American Indians were even given the full birthright citizenship. And we didn't gain the right to vote until 1957. So we're dealing with generations of cultural suppression, and we've had to continue to fight for our right to have a voice, to be heard, to be able to steward the lands, to regain some of our ancestral lands, and to also regain some of our ancestors' remains.
Welcome to Voices of Esselen. I'm Sam Stern. Today we're sharing a conversation that took place between members of the Esalen tribe of Monterey County and the Esalen Institute. Representing the Esalen tribe of Monterey County are Jana Nason and Stephen Vicente Arevalo. Jana Nason is an Esselen and Rumsen descendant and an enrolled tribal member of the ETMC. She is the nonprofit secretary and serves on the tribal council as tribal administrator and secretary, publications chair, and cultural resource committee member. She also manages the Cultural Archeological Monitoring program and serves her tribe in that capacity. She's dedicated to education and preserving and protecting the cultural heritage and ancestral sacred sites. Stephen Arevalo is an Esselen and Rumsen descendant. He currently serves on the ETMC Tribal Council as well as on the Cultural Resource Committee. Stephen serves his tribe on many levels and is a tribal cultural archaeological monitor. He's deeply passionate about his ancestry and has started a language relearning class for tribal members. He is an educational speaker and an active community member. Representing Esalen Institute is Douglas Drummond. Douglas serves as the Director for Healing Arts and Somatics and the Director of Community Alliance at Esalen Institute. He is also faculty there. Douglas is originally from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and now makes his home in Big Sur, California, in Esalen territory with his family. Hello, Jana, Stephen, Douglas. Thank you all so much for joining me today on Voices of Esselen to have a conversation that I feel like is a long time coming with Esalen Institute and the Esalen tribe. I'll just say that I'm in a state of deep gratitude and deep humility to have you all on the show and speaking from your mind and speaking from your hearts. And my intention with this dialogue is to be a listener and be a learner and to honor you all for your dedication to the path that you walk. To kick off this conversation, I would love it if each of you could introduce yourself and speak about the work that you do in this world.
Telekia Satsa, that's good morning in Esselen. I'm Jana Nason. First and foremost, I'm a steward of the land and a voice of the people. But in today's terminology, my official title would be a tribal council member, as well as I serve our nonprofit as our secretary and administrator.
Salakia Satsa, Nishismap Stephen Arevalo. Good morning, my name is Stephen Arevalo. I'm a tribal council member for Esalen Tribe of Monterey County, as well as a culture bearer, storyteller, song holder, and that's pretty much my position in the universe right now.
Kia ora, my name is Douglas Drummond. I'm currently at Esalen Institute, currently on Esalen territory, and I serve as the Director of Healing Arts and Somatics and the Director of Community Alliance at the Esalen Institute. And thanks, Sam, for having us on the show. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Stephen. Real honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Traditionally, we would be meeting face to face, and we would have a fire, and we would come with gifts. We would share a meal, and we would offer prayers and songs. And trying to bring our cultural traditions now into this modern world, we like to enter our space in that traditional way to carry those on. And I would love to share a prayer, and maybe Stephen can share a song. I don't know how it would sound with both of us singing, so I'm going to leave that to you, Stephen.
Okay.
And I want to share a little story about this prayer first. Just a few years ago, I didn't know this entire prayer, but these words and phrases kept popping up in me, and I didn't know where they were from. And so I asked some of my elders, I said, these sounds, these phrases are coming up, and I'm not sure where I learned it. And my uncle, Tom Little Bear, said, those are songs and prayers that you had heard many times in ceremony as a child. And it could also just be your body remembering. So it's really special. And I relearned that prayer from him. And I just want to honor that. And we like to do that. We like to share where we learn the song, because the knowledge is not knowledge of our own, but what our ancestors have given us. And this is an Esalen prayer. Ike neshmete. Ike nishiapa, quelmehe enike atsatsano, lakai nesh met peleno, chapishi no alpa, kalun no alpa, memni no alpa, lasname yakiki, le mepele namoeske. Yes, my grandfather. Yes, my grandmother. Thank you for this day and for my life. We pray for the birds. We pray for the fish. We pray for the deer. Great Spirit, please purify our bodies and our souls. Ike.
Ike.
Hmm.
And the song that I'll be singing is a celebration song. So, and celebration that we are coming together even digitally. I always like to open up space with either a celebration song or a song of rejoicing of some sort. So this is actually recorded through both of our ancestors, one of our ancestors, Viviana Mukai in 1902. And this is a celebration song. Aiye, ayelena, toa toa iye, 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 ayelena, to.
Quelmehe, that was beautiful.
That was beautiful, Stephen. Thank you. Thank you for your prayer too, Jana. Wow.
Hilapa. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the prayer and song. I thought a good way to start this discussion and conversation, if you're open to it, would be for Jana and Stephen sharing a bit about the history of the Esselen tribe.
Okay, well, there's a couple of really good facts that we can kick off. And one is that we are the smallest tribe, not only in California, pretty much on the continent. We're one of the smallest tribes population-wise. We've been the smallest tribe for as long as we can remember. We've always been the smallest tribe in population, but we're one of the oldest tribes. So we've been around for, according to latest carbon dating, 97 to 10,000 years here in the same area. But we've also been displaced through time. So before before the last deluge or the last rising of the waters, in which our creation story comes from, our homeland was from Monterey County, from the Big Sur area up to San Francisco, where nowadays modern day Ohlone descendants come from. So before that time, that was all Esselen territory. As the water rose and people ran up to the mountaintops, as the water and the water went down again and resided again, other tribes started to take over the land because there was so much open land after the deluge. So many people had passed away from that last cataclysm. So there was Miwakan invasion, what they call the Penutian invasion, about 25 to 4,500 years ago. And those particular people amalgamated with our people, and that created the Ohlone people that we have from the Ramaytush down to the Rumsen. This is all solidified through language. All the language of the Ohlone, they all have Esselen language within their their own language. And that's because as they were coming from inland, they didn't know any of the coastal things. They didn't know about seaweed and fish and whales and sharks. So all that language came from Esselen Hokan speakers. And so you will see evidence of our culture within the Ohlone culture as far north as San Francisco. And that's a lot of the pre-deluge history. And then after that, we've survived and we've created 5 rancherias that are our people. After that, let's see. So the deluge took place, and it was coyote, hummingbird, and eagle at the top. And they had to wait. So they had to wait for the water to recede. And then eagle told coyote to go look for his wife, go look for somebody else, go look for life elsewhere. And so coyote roamed the homeland until he found a woman at the river. And when he found a woman at the river, he asked eagle, how would he then populate? How does he populate with this woman so that they can continue life on the continent or within the homeland? And so he asked if he put it in her elbow, and the eagle's like, no. Well, where do you put in? And the hummingbird blurts out, you put in the stomach, silly. And so the coyote gets frustrated and tries to attack the hummingbird, but the hummingbird hides within the eagle and is protected. He goes out and he finds his wife and he tries to, so he then impregnates her by telling, eagle told him to tell her, pick a flea off of you and eat it. So the woman did so, and she becomes pregnant, but she gets scared about being pregnant. So she then runs to the ocean and jumps into the ocean and turns into the little sand fleas. And she jumps into the ocean and disappears. So coyote had to then look for another wife. And so he found another woman at a river and actually had a child with her, and they actually had a family in a village, and he started a village. And then later on, he got lonely. Coyote was lonely with just his family around, so he begged his wife 3 times to take on another wife, because we needed neighbors. There's no neighbors around. And so he took on, she said no 3 times, and then the final time she finally said yes, go look for another wife. And Coyote, being the trickster that he is, he ran around singing a song on a flute to bring that vibration of come to me, like a come to me song. And he actually, 5 women actually came to him, 5 other women came to him. And so he had 5 other wives, and he created the rancherias of our people by having those multiple wives after the flood and after the deluge. So that's like 2 mythologies, 2 or 3 stories kind of mashed in one, but that's the gist of our creation story and how our people have different nations. So there's the Rumsen, there's the Ekhiachan, there is the Kakunta, Sarhentaruk, there's the Etchilap, and I believe there is the Kalendaruk, which is more like Moss Landing area. And those are the 5 rancherias.
Mm. Stephen, you, like the way you describe your storytelling, and you speak so much from the heart, and also the way in which you're also in the mind about the history and fossil record and so forth, and knowing the ancestral line. Like, is this something that's quite like common in youth and Indigenous youth and Esselen youth? And just, it's interesting, you are, Jana and Stephen, this next generation of leadership and holding the tribe and so forth, but where does that passion come from? And is it common, I guess, in others, and how you share it?
Yeah, I would say everybody of the younger group of our age, I would say mid 30, 20, everybody has their niche within the tribe. Everybody has their particular passion, whether it's learning, physical basket weaving or songs or mythology. Someone's focusing on something, and everybody within our age group kind of has those niches, even subconsciously, even if they're not actively using it. Everybody sees the skills everybody else has, and their focus and in the conglomerate of the tribe and how it works for the tribe. I've seen, yeah, definitely more people within like our age group, like I would say their inner ancestor fire waking up, and kind of that remembrance of things, and just naturally being really good at whatever they're doing when it comes to culture. And it's amazing to watch, actually, for different reasons, but it's gratifying to see that it's just in your DNA to keep doing this, we've never stopped doing it. There's been gaps in times where people have kind of just fell off of practicing the culture, but in the conglomerate, the lines and the people and the families have never really stopped doing ceremony or partaking in culture in any way, shape, or form. So it's very interesting to see how everybody comes back and has their strengths for the village.
And I just want to back up and add a little bit more to our history here to give a little bit more context as to why we are the way we are now and how we've developed as individuals. And we're here now. The story really started, hundreds of thousands of years ago, but starting about 250 years ago, when colonization began in the 1700s, that was the beginning of severe genocide of our people, forced slavery, killing, cultural suppression, and stealing of our lands. Our people were forced off of their lands and taken into the missions. And this was really devastating to our people and to many other cultures that went through this as well. All of our lands were given away, and we had very few places to return home to. And the California genocide was the killing of thousands of indigenous peoples all over California and many other places in the world by the US government and other governments. It wasn't until 1924 by the Indian Citizenship Act that American Indians were even given the full birthright citizenship. And we didn't gain the right to vote until 1957, which that's the year my mom was born. That was not long ago. So we're dealing with generations of cultural suppression, and we've had to continue to fight for our right to have a voice, to be heard, to be able to steward the lands, to regain some of our ancestral lands, and to also regain some of our ancestors' remains. So it's evolved through time, and I believe we're kind of here now because we're wanting to be in right relations with the land and one another, and teach people the truth of what happened. And Stephen and I specifically have really, really deep ties to this area. My lineage never left this area. We stayed here in Big Sur and Carmel Valley since before it was recorded, before any records were developed. And I sat and watched as my family before me, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, they were stewards of the land. They fought to be a voice for the fish and the trees and the ocean and the people. And so it just became embedded in me, as it did with Stephen, because he watched his family and learned about his family doing it. And so we have this inherited responsibility to carry this on. And our next generation are the culture bearers and the storytellers and the land protectors and the protectors of our citizens. And our history has really shaped who we are today. Every day I sit in gratitude that we get to do this, that we get to be that voice. So I just wanted to add a little bit more context as to why Stephen and I are so involved and how we're kind of in these roles today.
And to add on that a lot of that history is still taking place. A lot of the cycles are just now being broken. We're in the 7th generation away from our village site and our enslavement now. So this is why you have this resurgence of young people coming and having their ancestor flame reawaken. We are that 7th generation right now. Me, Jana, are literally 7 generations away from our enslavement, from the village site itself. So when we talk about those prophecies, this is very real in a physical sense for us. And very important times that we're in, and it's not just Esselen people. This is all over. This is going on globally. This is the Maori people in New Zealand. This is 7 generations from all of that. It's going on, and if there's been generations, so we talk about history, like Europe's been colonized for even longer. We're talking Roman times, so they would be every 7 generations, so every 14, 21 generations. It happens every 7 from their colonization. And so everybody's waking up. It's not just an indigenous movement, it's a global indigenous movement. People are coming back to their culture everywhere. And it's just, for us, it's important because we're so small. Like, we're literally like the smallest tribe. And to have this surgence of energy and ancestral activity within our people is very important to us and very sacred.
So powerful. Thank you both for sharing that so deeply and educating. My heart's really opening in hearing this story, and just so grateful to both of you for speaking this, not just to me, but to the wider audience. A question that comes up for me is just what desires do both of you have for your life? What do you want to see through the work that you're doing? What will enable you to feel that you've lived a good life?
Yeah, sure. For me, I guess I get more fulfillment from seeing it. It's like passing my flame. So as long as I can pass my flame to other tribal members and non-tribal members, because my flame is that I'm a bridger by being a culture bearer. I can bridge information and mythologies and culture. So I'm trying to light people's flames all the time. So at the end goal is to light as many other people's ancestral flame as possible, get other people to remember who they are and their DNA, their downloads, and start getting that, living on a higher vibrational plane of existence than what we've been living here as, corporate enslavement is as rampant, as like we're focused on more physical instead of focusing on our inner energy and our chakra system and how we actually operate within the grand grid of what we call Earth. So that's my life goal.
And for me, it really started long ago. I'll just jump back to my history. I was really fortunate as a young child that we had a ceremonial village up at my family's land in Carmel Valley, and we would hold many ceremonies and gatherings. We're considered the northernmost roundhouse people, so we had an earth lodge that was half underground, half above ground, that could hold many people. And our parents would let us be in all the ceremonies. It's really this beat of this drum and this sound and this feeling of this ceremony that has lived on in me since I was a child. And that has been my flame. We have so many tribal citizens that have been displaced from this area and haven't been able to reconnect with their ancestral lands or maybe be a part of a ceremony. And I want to make sure that they can have that same feeling that I have within me, because it's a great inspiration and it's a deep honor and a gift.
Shall we discuss land acknowledgement?
Sure.
To start, just in a really a simple way, what is a land acknowledgement? Why is it important?
Sure, maybe I can start. Land acknowledgement is really a traditional, customary way for Native communities and communities all over the world to show their respect to the peoples of the land. And we do this by giving offerings and prayers. And for non-Indigenous communities, a land acknowledgement is a really powerful way of showing your respects and honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land, which they may live or work on. Acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth.
Yeah, and traditionally, even when you moved from one place to another, what you would normally do is you bury tobacco, and you acknowledge, like you acknowledge those tribes, as well as set those intentions and those prayers and songs down, and then you bury an offering of whatever your herb mix is, mugwort, tobacco, whatever, and you bury it into the soil to give thanks to the people in that particular land. And that was a very traditional way to do things. Even when I had moved around, I practiced that particular practice, because I understood that if I'm moving into that land, I'm integrating into that community. And if I'm walking on that soil, it's the same thing. I'm integrating into that tribal community. So you have to do that within a spiritually correct place. And a lot of us are so unaware of those practices, that we just move from place to place, and we don't understand. A lot of us don't understand that, why we do that, but it has to deal with acknowledging the tribes and acknowledging the ancestors that have been there for thousands of years and who have sacrificed their lives to protect that area and steward that area and nurture that area. It's a very important thing to do when we talk about setting intention, even for your home. So if you move into a new spot, you want to set your intention and kind of clear that space out so you can build your own family there and your own energy there. And that's what you do with land acknowledgement.
And Douglas, do you think that you could speak a bit about thoughts around land acknowledgement at Esselen, with either the work that you're doing or the plans that the Institute has?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, well, very respectfully and humbly, I've had an opportunity to represent Esalen Institute and also myself and my family too. My family involved in healing and reconciliation in Aotearoa, New Zealand for 2 generations, me being the third, and just acknowledging too the work of previous leadership in Esalen Institute, and acknowledging Gordon Wheeler, who's currently our board president, who has had a long-standing relationship with little bear Tom Nason and with the Esalen tribe of Monterey County, and to be able to carry some of the work, a lot of the work forward that he initially started in that communication. And many people that lived at Esalen Institute and worked here, including my dear father-in-law, Richard Horan, who was part of original gardening and landscaping, who was had a strong, deep intuition and heart when working in the gardens and uncovering artifacts and remains too, and to be in communication and to bring those forward to the tribe. And all of those relationships and ways has helped set a really wonderful foundation, I believe, to now. And perhaps to echo, Stephen, your work around the 7 generations, there is an intuition and a calling that wants to bridge and connect. I can't think of a single current staff member, and certainly incoming staff in the past, that have wanted to know more about the land, and it's always synonymous with the people of the land. So the timing has become quite a big groundswell. I think Esselen, by our name, perhaps had good intentions in naming, but along the way has just perhaps not lost its path, but just perhaps it wasn't clear how important it was to really acknowledge the land and acknowledge the people. And so there have been initiatives, but now that real timing has really become quite ripe. And through good hearts and clear conversations and many listening circles. And again, just honouring many people who have collaborated on the process. The list is long and long. I play just a small part in that. However, I've got a big beating heart about how to reach and connect with all Indigenous people, but certainly in my role as this work as a director in this community alliance work has been finding ways in which we can perhaps connect with the Esselen tribe in different ways, and also in much more of a collaborative way. And after many discussions, we have a land acknowledgement event that we are working on for the 13th of November. And very much in a conversation, a talk story way. For instance, we are stewards and we're hosting. We are stewards of the land here, and also in many ways, for me, we're stewards hosting and looking after land on behalf of the Esselen tribe and holding that space for them too, and honouring, and then finding ways in which we're bridging the tribe back into the land. So the land acknowledgement itself, led by the tribe, we're just holding space and working logistics. But a lot of our leadership, our board is coming to join, our operational leadership, the tribe, and I imagine some community members too that have been part of this relationship for a long time are joining. And then after the land acknowledgement, we have a week-long workshop where I'm co-leading with Carrie Herthel, who's the vice chair of the Esselen tribe of Monterey County and an elder and a medicine woman, speak humbly and respectfully, for a week long, with a lot of that work around land acknowledgement. So important for me too is that we're sort of putting at this event, the land acknowledgement itself, just to set a course for us. Perhaps we'll have some regularity and what form it takes, we'll find out. But really it is just a punctuation point, in a long journey and storytelling and action between the Esselen tribe of Monterey County and the Esalen Institute. And my heart and my mind and my communication is to set forward that there'll be many more chapters written afterwards.
Yeah, and if I can just add, we said before that we're in this time of reawakening, and I really believe that now more than ever, Native communities as well as non-Native communities are wanting to learn how to be in right relations with the land and with the first people that came from that land. And so we've had this beautiful journey, and now more than ever, we want to do better than we've done before. We want to take those steps and follow through. And it's been a really beautiful journey, and we're excited to have the land acknowledgement. It's just a really special time.
Sam, you asked about some other, work, and I say the word, it's quite difficult to express the energy and the connection, but the initiatives that we've been working on, in a sense, for lack of better words, the land acknowledgement being, in a sense, what we've been talking about, but ways in which we are integrating in our programming and our offerings. Our education is really key, and one of our real key values at the Institute here too. So even working on sort of poster shadow box boards, just areas, places of worship or contemplation that are very much led and designed by the tribe, and the content of them working with the tribe. Just to really, I think, just the start, how do we start steeping our staff and our education and our direction hand in hand with the tribe, been really, really important. And I say those words like with like a very full heart, but just with a certain like timing. It's like going slow. And I use this analogy of taking these baby steps, and I was talking to a little bear, Tom Nason, about these baby steps and being like, wow, we've taken baby steps for a long time. And I'm sort of like, well, I just really honor the tribe and giving me that timing to kind of like to go and be methodical and go slow. But just adoring. I'm thinking of my dear daughter, Olivia, too, of these baby steps and how quickly they've turned into quite a powerful gait and some amazing direction. And we're working together in a really beautiful way that way. So, yeah, it's humble and it's reverent. And I'm always grateful for the tribe and their huge patience as the Institute kind of trips and stumbles and is learning from a crawl into a walk. But we are making some really positive steps, and it's going to be an exciting space to watch in the future.
And as Jana said, there's more and more people who want to know how to acknowledge the land. And what better way to learn than from the people who actually are the original stewards of the land in any place. So no matter where you're at, you can be in Phoenix, Miami, Atlanta. When you want to do a land acknowledgement, you should touch base with the indigenous group of that particular territory, because every way we all acknowledge our land differently. There's all different, everybody has their own ceremony and prayer and work and whatever they're doing on the land. There's particular practices for those regions for a reason, and that's been going on for thousands of years. So not saying to necessarily hijack culture, but which you can definitely acknowledge the land in a respectful way. And if someone who's indigenous is handing you that medicine to do so because they see you actually honestly doing the work, then it's not necessarily a hijack, is it? You're actually part of this community of stewards now. You're part of this network of people who are honestly putting in good energy into the land. And that's what's important about land acknowledgement. It's not just this physical, yes, this is Esselen territory, or yes, this is Rumsen or Ramaytush territory or Cherokee territory. It's actually putting in intention and work and time and meditation into what we're doing. This is very much sacred and ceremonial and prayer work. And when we talk about that, that goes for anybody in their own personal way. However you do that for you, but you can do that for you within the intention and setting of indigenous practice.
Yeah, to speak of the land that Esalen Institute is on now, that is very sacred ground to our people. And if the ancestors and the land are unsettled, things happen, fires happen, floods happen, bad energy is around. And so Esalen Institute has met us in conversations on how to live and work on the land with reciprocity and in a respectful way. And we've been able to really build upon this relationship to have a better understanding and to help the visitors, the employees, residents have a better understanding as well.
How can Esselen be in right relationship with Esselen tribe? What would be the elements of a good, respectful, useful, generative relationship from your perspectives?
For me, I'm heavily focused on protecting the cultural resources and making sure the land isn't overused. And so making sure that we have a good plan to respect the land, to walk gently, and to help educate along the way so that people can carry that through the other areas of their life. Speaking of right relations, part of it is helping to amplify the voice of the tribe, to encourage the truth-telling of the correct history, to be an ally and a friend, a supporter, a brother and a sister. That's really important to us. It's really important to me.
For me, being in right relation would be being in constant contact with us, being in constant communication with us, allowing us to hold space there when we need to, when we feel the need to, because we're not going there in an intrusive way. We're going there in a, hey, this is needed way. This energy is needed here. There's stuff that needs to be done at this particular site. And it's not just it's not just this site. We're doing it in many sites. We're going to a bunch of our sites to do this particular work. I heard something interesting just yesterday, matter of fact, that someone was telling me history of my own people, which I always think is funny, but they were telling me that those particular hot springs were a center point for multiple tribes to come through and to do. And I said, if that's true, it's because they had permission from our tribe to come. There was a welcoming there. There wasn't an intrusion of people. I said, the way you're telling it, it sounds like an erasure of this site even being our site, when in all actuality, that particular site is an Esselen site. It's known for years that it's an Esselen site, hence why the name is even placed on the institute. But when I heard the story yesterday, it kind of threw me back like, hey, this is what people are thinking out there, that these particular sites are just community sites and anybody can go here, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. And I said, yeah, and respectfully, they did it when they got welcomed, and they came with gifts, and they came bearing gifts, and no one's doing that with the tribe now. No one's bearing gifts with the tribe now like we would traditionally. And that's not what we're asking. What we're asking is the land acknowledgement, the intention, the inclusion is the gift. The inclusion is, yes, the property is obviously owned privately, or but it's not public land, but there's a way in order to have a positive relationship that's very give and take, and not just take or use on any which way, not from the tribe, not from the institute. There's a matter of balance there. And I think that just that constant communication and allowance of even just physical prayer presence, ceremony every once in a while, doing things that we feel the need to do on equinoxes and full moons and new moons and things like that is enough. In my eyes, it's a start, and you could build on that. It's enough of a start to build on and keep building on until we have this great structure, which is tied into our personal relationships as well as professional relationships with everybody that's involved.
Yeah, and the waters of Esselen, the waters that are run through Esalen Institute are very sacred to our people, and traditionally it'd be used for healing. Our peoples would travel to that location or to Tazar hot springs or to Sykes to heal themselves. There are records of people making their journey specifically to those places to heal. And so without access to those places, that's kind of like taking away part of our traditional medicine. So being able to access those for traditional ways is very important. And that helps us to be able to carry on our cultural traditions and practice our traditional medicine ways.
And which in turn helps everybody else, because if we're healthy, then we're doing the prayer work in the land's going to be healthy. Everything's going to, it's an interconnected situation. It's how would I say it? It's like a biosymbiote. It's like we live off of each other. The humans that are living on this land are living off of the land itself. So there's that interconnectedness. And if we have the ability to keep healing ourselves when we do get sick from doing this prayer work and healing work, because as we know, if you're trying to cure and clean the land and pray over things, you're getting yourself dirty in order to clean something else. So you have to have a place to clean yourself. And those hot springs were a place for us to go ahead and release any spiritual bad energy or bad medicine that was attached to after cleaning, or just being in any of contact with any of those type of things. Those hot springs would, even physical ailments would help us. And so having access to that would continue that relationship.
One thing that comes to mind as I listen to this, I think about really being in right relationship, and a necessity to avoid tokenizing the folks is doing the internal work to be ready for an actual relationship. So I wanted to pose the question to both of you: what kind of internal work do you think is necessary for people or an institution that is desiring to be in right relationship?
It's a good question. I would say acknowledging where you're living is one of the main things you can do, is acknowledge wherever you're living at. If you're not from there, acknowledge it and read the history and figure out what really went on in that, because there's a reason why the energy's set now in these particular areas. It's because of a lot of bad things that happened. So I've had people come down to the Monterey County and say, whoa, this energy feels really intense and sad. And it's like, yeah, because people were ripped out of their village sites and people were enslaved here. There's a lot of energy that's unstill, and we're doing the work now. But if you don't, you have to, if you're aware of that kind of thing, you have to, you're going to have to acknowledge it. And that's part of the land acknowledgement, is acknowledging the history and the atrocities that happened. So that would, for me, that would be the initial thing to work on for everybody who's not already interconnected to community, indigenous community, is acknowledge what happened, truly happened, the true history, not the embellished, romanticized history that they teach you in history school. No, go read First Contact, go read point of contact journals, go read what was really happening in those areas, the reports. You could read all this stuff. It's public information. You can literally Google and search PDF files on, the journals of Batista, or the journals of Portola, or Palu, or any of these other Spaniards. They all wrote first point of contacts on all the atrocities and all the things that they were doing. They didn't hide. They didn't have to hide, so they were writing it all down. So you can literally do that work as you're just learning about us, just learning our history. Take time to do it, because it's a lot of reading. So be prepared.
I think helping to bring Indigenous peoples to conversations, whether it's on land stewardship, interpretive information, it could be many things, but making sure that those people that you're having the discussion around are in the conversation, helping to amplify the voice, like I said before, being truth tellers. Let's lead with truth here, what really happened to our people. And for me, being in right relations with the land is really important. So making sure that, as citizens, we are staying aware of what's happening in our community, what's happening on our shorelines and on the land. Every 30 seconds in the world, a football field size of native landscape is bulldozed. If we keep going at that rate, we are in serious trouble. So making sure that we are being activists, we're out there protecting the fish. We're making sure we're really protecting our coastlines and our lands, the native species that live here, the endangered species that are struggling to survive.
Jana, one piece that's coming up for me and our conversations with you too, Stephen, but Jana in particular, when we've been talking, and we have quite regular chats, whether about between our committees or work inside and outside of the Institute and with the tribe. But for me, they've always been very heart-opening conversations. For me, it's been one of my greatest gifts and experience. It's a real privilege to have this growth and this emotional intelligence to have very difficult conversations. And that's something I always am just deeply humbled in the interaction I've had with the tribe, especially in relationship to Esalen Institute. It's been that heart-opening experience, and a conversation that we had together in group was a sharing that you had about this time that we've had communication with the Esalen Institute and with the tribe about piecing together a broken heart. And it was very touching. It still resonates with me now very, very strongly, and I've shared that with you too. Perhaps maybe you can reflect a little bit about that, about this piecing together and how it's been a healing process, if any.
Yes. What I explained was that we're on this journey now, and I feel like we're going around picking up these broken pieces of our ancestors' hearts and trying to put it back together. And it's not just with Esalen Institute, but it's many agencies. And we're trying to help right some of the wrongs that happened in history. And we carry this intergenerational trauma of our ancestors. Now we're moving through life trying to help rebuild that heart, put it back together. So we have conversations, for example, with state parks, what are interpretive programs we can have? What kind of access can Indigenous people have to our native lands and plants and medicine? How can we protect sites? We're working with schools on the history that they teach. We work with private entities on various topics. And so really, yes, we're going around picking up pieces of this broken heart and putting it back together so we can live as more complete humans, and we can help heal our Mother Earth.
And it's such a gift, Jana, too, that you're offering consciously or subconsciously to, like, for instance, our teams at the Institute to be able to hear and listen and see where those parts of our hearts that we also need to mend and bring back together. That's been a really powerful partnering, that healing process and that piece. And I really appreciate just always your integrity and real intelligence and just deep hearts, you both, and how you represent the tribe in that way. Is it just such a beautiful gift that giving our staff this ability to see themselves and in relationship to the land that perhaps they haven't had before, that you are giving them an experience that for them is just so incredible in their development. And if that's not actualizing human potential, we really need to be asking ourselves those real bigger questions. It's an unconditional gift, and I know, speak on behalf of them, they're very grateful.
Just to piggyback on that, I think another important thing is when it comes to mending these broken hearts and the relationships with these agencies and institutes and companies and things, is what I find the most frustrating is that when I talk to people about who we are as a people and who we are as a tribe, there's always a separation between who we are as a person today and who our ancestors were back then. And there is no difference. There's no difference in my ancestors and me. I am my ancestor. It frustrates me when people say, well, you guys don't do that now. And it's like, well, you can't say that if you don't even know who we are. You don't even know that we're even present in the community. You can't say what we're doing or what we're not doing because you're not aware of even our presence here. A lot of people don't even know that we exist as a community within Monterey County. I've told people that I was Esselen and they thought that I actually worked at the Institute, or that I was tied to the Institute in some way. And I said, no, I'm actually the people. And they said, oh, I thought that's the name of the Institute. And I said, well, that is the name of the Institute, but that's also the name of my ancestors' people. You know what I mean? Like, this is our name as well. And so that a lot of people just don't have that knowledge. A lot of out of sight, out of mind. A lot of descendants don't look stereotypically like a native. A lot of us are amalgamated. A lot of us have mixed European ancestry to certain degrees, different degrees. When you see us, we look like it. We blend in with everybody else. And you can't really tell who's an Esselen Indian unless you're wearing shells and you got, markings on your face, or you're wearing a feather somehow, some way, and you're in like almost a ceremonial setting. You're not going to know who we are on a day-to-day basis. But actually reaching out, you'll learn that there's plenty of people in the community that are indigenous, both Esselen and not even non-Esselen. There's a lot of people that are just in the community that are of other tribes that are from everywhere. I literally went to the homeland and met at least 70 to 80 people from just different tribes, Chichimeca, tribes from Mexico, tribes from Northern America, everywhere. There's all kinds, and just people just don't ask enough questions about people. We're not asking like, hey, how are you? What are you? Oh, you look so unique. We don't do that anymore. We're so not personal with our conversation that it shows lack of knowledge of indigenous presence, lack of knowledge and culture with each other. There's like a cutoff. There's a barrier right there for us as people of everybody, the whole community. It's not just focused on indigenous. It's like we don't ask enough interpersonal questions to get to know each other anymore. We're not doing it. And it's sad. And I think that has to do with technology too, that we're so on the go. We're so, let's jump on Zoom and handle the business, that we don't really have, hey, how was your day? Oh, you had a walk, or hey, you whatever, you played soccer on the weekend. Like, no one's doing that. And that's the problem with acknowledging our presence and then differentiating us from our ancestors as well, is there's this lack of communication and wanting to know anything.
Some of what you said, Stephen, really makes me think of the term, the token Indian. Yep. And like you said, like, if I'm not wearing my shells, people may say, oh, you don't look Indian, you don't look Native. Well, what am I supposed to be carrying around, a bow and arrow and wearing shells all the time? We're many shades of colors these days. We walk many different styles of life, and people expect us to be really outward facing when we're actually really private people. Our ceremonies were held in private. Our dances were in private. Stories that we shared were in private. So it's an adjustment to be in these modern times while trying to educate people without compromising some of our traditions. But we're expected now, in a way, to go do a dance in front of people or sing songs. And that's not the setting that they were in previously. Songs were given as prayers or as gifts or traded. And many of those sharings were meant for really sacred times.
Very true.
When I hear this, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that there's more than just a land acknowledgement, really, that's wanting to happen. It's a people acknowledgement. And what I also hear coming from you is a desire for folks to learn about your history, to take it upon themselves, to educate themselves. And you mentioned going on Google and reading first contact reports. Curious if there are any other books or movies that you feel are kind of like required reading or could be helpful in viewing, in introducing folks who are new to this topic or conversation?
Sure. You can read I believe it's a 1922 book by Alfred Kroeber, The Indians of California. There's also The Indianology of California by Alexander Smith Taylor. Both those books have interviews from me and Jana's ancestors. So I believe it's my fifth, and I think it's both our fifth great grandfather, Salvador Mukai, and he was recorded in 1856, and the book was released in, I believe, I would have to look, but I'm sure it's in the 1900s. It's a very, very old book. That was by Alexander Smith Taylor, and so he gave language, he gave mythology. He was interviewed on a lot of different topics, land territory, the traditional, what we called like the Pajaro River, what was our northern territory, what was our southern territory. There was a lot of details within that interview. And then in The Indians of California by Alfred Kroeber, his daughter was recorded in 1902, and she's actually also the one who was recorded singing the traditional songs into the wax cylinder. So both Salvador and Viviana Mukai are written in history. So it's like first contact according to our ancestors, and specifically both of our lineage hails from those two ancestors.
And a great book to learn more specifically about the Esselen and our traditional lands is The Esselen Indians of the Big Sur Country by Gary Berskini. You know, Sam, I had another comment on the land acknowledgement, because many times there's this misunderstanding about land acknowledgements. People, all of a sudden want to be in right relations. So at their event, they, decide they're going to do a land acknowledgement. First, they call the tribe to ask if we can come do a land acknowledgement, but it's not our responsibility. It would be their responsibility to do the acknowledgement. And then it's not just those words that are stated, but it's the actions that happen after that. That is more important. It's about the actions. It's about taking those steps to be in right relations, or maybe even starting those steps before your land acknowledgement.
Well put. Very well put.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jana, it's always like the way in which you can offer that clarity is really, really key. And I think too, the ways in which we have some initiatives with the Esalen Institute is how do we amplify this voice? And, Sam, just wanted to acknowledge you too and setting up and holding this podcast, that you amplify voices and amplifying this voice here currently with the Esselen tribe. It's really beautiful. And Jana and Stephen always just empower you and always speak your truth and the ways in which we collaborate with the Institute and with the tribe. It's really, really humbling, and looking forward to ways in which we're going to work together, and also set, not necessarily for me, it's important to create a succession. How do we keep these things in motion, and always willingness and always incredible to be in your presence and seeing that same value being expressed through your words and your actions too.
Yes, it's been a real pleasure to be in these conversations. When we entered in these conversations, probably about 2 years ago now, it came to the conversation with quite a bit of heaviness. And now I feel at a place of joy, because on top of acknowledging the tribe, we're getting to take those steps to be in right relations with the peoples and the land. We're going to build a Yanep, which is a place of worship at the Esalen Institute where we can go pray and have offerings. And we'll have some educational information there where people and visitors can come by and learn some traditional ways of how to give an offering. We're excited that Esalen Institute is helping to amplify our voice. We're going to be including more history info on the website and for visitors on site. So it's just been, like I said, it's been a joy, and I feel a lot lighter about the relationship. It's a lot more comfortable, and it feels really positive. And I feel like we're taking these steps towards a better future. It really just warms my heart. And so thank you. And thank you for helping to share our story and our voices here today.
Yes, thank you. And for me, we're at powerful prophetic times. We're in very, very strong energy. The vibration is very different than it was about 5-6 years ago, even 10 years ago. It's good to see and feel that lightness about the relationship, and the fact that energy is like I said, right now it's a give and take. So it's just building and swelling and building and swelling in a positive note, and not in a negative energy, in a negative space. And that's where we as a tribe want to be. We just want to be in a positive building space with the Institute, and have the Institute positively building with us in every way, shape, and form, comfortably for everybody. And I think that as long as we're in that mindset, that, sky's the limit with the relationship, and we can really enjoy each other, build with each other, and have a really good, healthy relationship.
And how about for listeners who might feel inspired by this discussion, especially I'm thinking about people who are local to Big Sur or Monterey County, how might they be involved or volunteer or try to step into right relationship as well with Esselen people and tribe?
Yeah, something that is really on my agenda right now. And it's kind of those hard asks, and that's fundraising. We're also a nonprofit. We're also trying to operate in a way that's efficient to protect cultural resources, to build education. So we're part of the MC Gives campaign in Monterey County this year, which starts soon. And just every dollar raised is a big help for us. It's a really big help. In volunteering, we love volunteers. We're working on building our kind of volunteer base a bit. We are actually going to be having a all-day community event on November 20th at Hacienda Hay and Feed, where we're going to be doing activities with kids. We'll be having storytelling, sharings. We'll be sharing food together, and possibly even prepping some of that food together. So it'll be a really beautiful day, and we'd love to see all of the community faces there. So feel free to come by.
Many thanks for the space holding, and thank you for the time and moment in time that we've had together to come to converse and sit down and have this conversation. So really quick, Maliakapa Hilapa Tachea Panamues, which is much gratitude, honor, and blessings to everybody here at this Zoom right now and this podcast.
Thanks for listening to our show. Today's episode was produced in conjunction with Shira Levine. Our theme music is by Nico Holloman, additional music by Dancing Pink Orbs. To learn more about the Esselen Tribe of Monterey County and to see how you can support them, visit esselentribe.org. That's ESSELEN tribe.org.